Greetings, everyone. I'm Anshika Srivastav. I'm currently a third year BTech CSE student pursuing DevOps. So, today we'll be talking about managing relationship and being happy. Throughout this video assignment, we'll be exploring happiness measurement, deadly sins that destroy happiness, neediness, and exploration of chasing happiness. So, in our journey toward a fulfilling life, the foundation of happiness often lies in the quality of our relationships. True happiness does not stem from material success alone, but from meaningful connections where mutual growth, emotional support, and shared experiences thrive. Hence, the subject managing relationships. When we nurture relationships with care, we open ourselves up to the personal transformations, growing together through both joys as well as challenges. Strong bonds that encourage growth and offer a safe space for emotional expression lead to a more stable, long lasting sense of happiness. Now, exploring the understanding of happiness and relationships. In this current slide, we'll be exploring the various factors like mutual growth, emotional connection, giving, and gratitude, as well as healthy boundaries. At the heart of these relationships are all these elements like emotional connection, gratitude, deep emotional ties, and genuine bonds. Acts of kindness and appreciation further solidify these relationships, making both the parties feel equally valued. At the same time, protecting personal space through healthy boundaries ensures that we don't lose ourselves in the process, enabling respect and balance. Now, talking about the first factor, which is mutual growth. Strong relationships often foster personal growth and emotional support, boosting happiness not just in the short term, but in a long term manner. Then, emotional connection. Because to thrive in our day to day lives, we need deep, genuine connections for happiness rather than the number of relationships. That is, valuing the quality of relationships that we build over the number of relationships that we have. Giving and gratitude. Showing both acts of kindness and appreciation to solidify and strengthen our bonds and elevate happiness. Healthy boundaries. Because we need to have certain limits as to foster our own well being and respect, thus creating balanced and happier relationships. Now, in the further slides, we'll be talking about the seven deadly sins, which are a classification of the vices in Christian ethics that have been historically considered the root of other immoral behaviors. The seven deadly sins, which we'll be talking about in the further slides, are pride, greed, lust, envy, gluttony, wrath, and sloth. They represent destructive human tendencies that lead to emotional suffering and loss of true happiness. So, understanding the first sin, which is pride's impact. Now, what is pride? Pride is excessive belief in one's own abilities, often seen as the most serious sin among all the seven deadly sins, as it can lead to arrogance and dismissal of others' worth. Here, exploring the impact that pride can have. The first one is inflated self worth, which can lead to a higher boosted ego and a sense of superiority, making the other person feel inferior, and this can hinder personal growth and awareness. The second one, chasing validation. This is something which we most oftenly do in our day to day lives, that is, seeking external validation, which then creates a cycle of dissatisfaction and unhappiness in our lives. The third one is lack of empathy. When pride dominates, individuals struggle to empathize with others. Both empathy and sympathy are required to be present in each individual, because if not, it can lead to emotional disconnect and hence a strained relationship. Emotional imbalance. This can be caused by pride, and this can lead to feelings of being alone, lonely, and unfulfillment, despite all the outward appearances of success or failures. Now, moving on to the second sin, which is sloth. Sloth is laziness or avoidance of physical or spiritual work, which prevents personal growth and contribution to society. Moving on and talking about the impact that sloth can have. First, sloth hinders growth. Sloth can be characterized by inaction and avoidance of responsibility, leading to prevention of personal and professional growth. Then, sloth often leads to stagnation, that is, a feeling of being stuck and unfulfilled, where there is no direct growth. Then, Responsibility and accountability is very crucial because sloth is all about avoidance, but one must be accountable for all the actions and behaviors that they possess. Then, fulfillment through initiative, where persons must engage, and this sense of fulfillment can lead to joy and sharp emotions, contrasting sharply with emptiness of sloth. Now, talking about the third deadly sin, which is envy. Envy is jealousy towards another's traits, status, or possessions, which breeds resentment and discontent. Talking about discontent, envy leads to discontent as it can create a sense of dissatisfaction with an individual's own life and can overshadow personal happiness. Then, talking about the second factor, how comparison harms self esteem. As when we compare our day to day deeds with others, it can often lead to chronic feelings of inadequacy and inferiority. Joy is sapped by envy. Now, what do we mean by this? When individuals focus on what others have, they overlook their own achievements. As it is said, that focusing on somebody else's highlight reels and comparing it with our day to day background scenes leads to envy. Blessings and gratitude often gets overlooked. It blinds our own blessings and the gifts that we have, making them focus on what they lack rather than what they possess. Moving on to the fourth deadly sin, which is wrath. Wrath is uncontrolled feeling of anger or hatred, and it often projects when leaded to violence and destruction of relationships. Wrath acts as an emotional barrier and hinders emotional healing, trapping individuals in cycles of pessimism. Holding on to anger can create a toxic environment for personal growth, happiness, and thus impacts mental health. Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die, which leads to harm to both the people. Then it impacts positive relationships, as when we sap in anger onto the other person, it often projects feelings of negativity and discontent. This can further lead to isolation, as people don't want to surround themselves with angry people. So it can further compound unhappiness and emotional distress. Now, talking about the other deadly sin, which is greed. Greed is categorized as intense and selfish desire for wealth, power, or possessions, leading to exploitation and lack of compassion. Let's explore the impact that greed can have on happiness. Greed can overshadow joy because when greed takes precedence, it often clouds our ability to experience genuine happiness and fulfillment as we become fixated on acquiring more. It's common saying about greed that when we are greedy, we tend to prioritize our wants over our needs. This leads to overconsumption and overexploitation because the needs of a person can be fulfilled, but the wants may not be. Talking about the pursuit of material wealth, as people find themselves chasing material possessions, are trapped in a cycle of dissatisfaction, never feeling satisfied with what they have. The other impact that greed can have is emotional well being suffers. Because when we are constantly striving for more, this only leads to increased stress and emotional distress. Then, focusing on meaningful experiences. Instead of accumulating wealth, meaningful experiences can lead to a more fulfilling and happy life. Because money may or may not buy happiness, but once we are in healthy relationships, that's the best thing that a human being can acquire. Now, talking about the other deadly sin, which is lust and quest for happiness. Lust is often categorized as overwhelming desire or craving, especially for sexual pleasure, which can reduce others to mere objects for personal gratification. Lust can overshadow real connections because when one tends to become lustful, they often focus on physical attraction, overshadowing the potential for deeper emotional bonds that bring true happiness. Other impacts which lust can have is superficial relationships that make the people involved feel very empty, as there is no concrete depth, only feelings of emptiness and dissatisfaction in the long run. True fulfillment comes from meaning, which lust can never provide. Meaningful relationships should be formed, and emotional bonds should be catered to, which provide a deeper sense of fulfillment rather than mere seconds of gratification. Lust can be misleading because lust, as it may appear appealing, often distracts from the pursuit of genuine emotional satisfaction and lasting joy. Now, we have another deadly sin, which is gluttony. Now, what is gluttony? Gluttony is overindulgence, particularly with food or drink, representing a loss of self control and discipline. Overindulgence. Let's talk about overindulgence in detail. Gluttony, as I said, is defined as excessive indulgence in food or drink, which leads to unhealthy habits. Like gluttony can often lead to addictions, and addictions are very harmful, particularly for physical health, as they can cause obesity, diabetes, and heart diseases. When one's physical body is all damaged, then it can often also cause emotional imbalances, which creates feelings of guilt and inadequacy, as there is often the need of overindulgence and acquiring more. Affects our physical, professional, and personal relationships. It impacts happiness because when there are physical risks and emotional imbalances, how can a person be happy? So, to cater to gluttony and to avoid it from taking a toll on our lives, what we can do is strike the right balance, as balance in consumption can help us to avoid the negative consequences of gluttony. Mindful eating, that is, only eating what is needed and practicing mindfulness and enjoying what we eat, thus reducing overindulgence. Now, let's talk about the behaviors related to sins. As discussed in the previous slides, that sins can lead to chasing of external validation, which leads to a sense of dissatisfaction. Seeking approval from others can lead to lack of self acceptance and inner peace. Avoiding responsibility hinders personal growth, as one must be accountable for all the actions that they are doing. And dodging accountability prevents individuals from evolving and learning from their mistakes. Holding on to anger often disrupts emotional balance. As we discussed about anger, covered in the Christian deadly sins under the header of wrath, where clinging to resentment can create ongoing stress and prevent the pursuit of true happiness. Indulging in excess, that is gluttony, acquiring more than needed, greed. Once we explored all these sins in detail, they lead to temporary pleasure, not fulfillment. Overindulgence can bring only momentary joy and in the long run lead to emptiness. Now, if we talk about an example, as we say, it's a very common example that when a glass is filled with water, half of the glass is filled with water, and we present it to three different people. They have various perspectives on this. The first one may say that the glass is half empty, illustrating that there is greed or gluttony present in the person because the person is not focusing on optimism. The person is not focused, rather thinking about the pessimistic aspects that may evolve. Then the second person who may be given the glass may say that, okay, the glass is half filled with water. That is, they are happy and practicing gratitude for all the opportunities that they are presented with. The third person may be a realist who may say that the glass is filled with half water and half air. Now, talking about the impact of sins on growth, as discussed in the previous slides, that all these sins have negative impacts, which can create a toxic environment for interpersonal relationships to grow. It fosters a sense of comparison, leading to inadequacy and feelings of low self esteem. It creates feelings of dissatisfaction and discontent, thus breeding unhappiness. It hinders genuine connections from being formed, as it obstructs the ability to form authentic relationships. It promotes emotional instability, as the cycle of sin leads to fluctuating emotions and instability. It prevents self improvement and hinders self identity as it distracts individuals from personal development or efforts. Cycle of unhappiness. Engaging in these sins perpetuates unhappiness over time as an individual keeps on committing these sins repeatedly. So, to avoid these sins and to have a genuine sense of true happiness and manage our interpersonal relationships, these are the factors that offer to be quite helpful. The first one is gratitude. Gratitude and positive self affirmations is something which an individual must practice at least once a day. At least after waking up in the morning or before going to sleep, one must be grateful for the day, for the entire day that they witnessed, and seek forgiveness for all the wrongdoings of the entire day. This can boost the happiness and help to build an overall better and efficient well-being. Mindfulness practices like engaging in yoga and practicing and appreciating life's moments can help individuals to enhance and build on their real sense of joy. Positive relationships matter as We tend to think and imbibe values and feelings from all the people who surround us. So we must ensure that the people around us are good individuals and they practice positive stuff in their day to day life as it caters to long term happiness and support. Then, acts of kindness boosts joy. Not being selfish in our interpersonal activities and practicing kindness every day is a must. No matter whom we interact with, we don't know their story, we don't know the behind the scenes, yet we must be kind to them because we don't know how the other person is suffering. And so we must show feelings of sympathy and empathy towards the other person, as this can create a small ripple effect of happiness and a small change in anybody's day and lighten up the whole mood and can help them focus more on their own. So it is important to surround ourselves with good people and to ourselves try to be those good people that we engage with others. Then pursuing passion for fulfillment, that is, engaging in the activities which provide real meaning and have a important effect on us both mentally and physically, as it can lead to a deeper sense of satisfaction. And once we are satisfied, then it's a less likely situation to fall into habits of sins because remember, all sins arise from what you lack. Then, bringing on healthy lifestyle choices like waking up early in the morning, walking, and having peace in our day to day life rather than struggling about everything in the last minute. Regular exercise and balanced eating plays a crucial role in enhancing happiness, as a balanced eating lifestyle helps us to not only build onto our physical strengths and our physical stamina, but also leads to an emotionally balanced life. So these are all the factors that one must keep in mind for practicing true happiness. Now, talking about how to nurture these positive traits. First, self acceptance is the key. That is, holding accountability for all the things that we are doing, which can also help us to combat negativity and foster confidence. Gratitude enhances happiness, as we discussed in the previous slide. That gratitude shifts focus from what we are lacking to what we actually acquire. Moderation is very essential. Striking the right balance can lead to a more fulfilling and peaceful life, counteracting the seven deadly sins, which we discussed in detail in the previous slides. Fostering emotional well being. Positive traits contribute significantly to lasting happiness, optimism, and striking the right balance for physical and mental health. Again, talking about balance, we should have balanced perspectives and perceptions on life and aim for contentment. Cultivation requires practice. We must practice self acceptance, gratitude, and moderation. Lasting happiness is achievable. With the right traits, we can acquire proper relationships around us and build a sense of deeper fulfillment and contentment for a sustainable state of being. Then, steps to a balanced life. First is self reflection. That is, one must acquire positive traits and keep giving out and reducing out on all pessimism that one holds. Setting realistic goals. Consistency not just means trying to do it every day, but real consistency is also that if day one is done, day two is done, and day three is skipped, then making sure that the day four is done as it should be. That is, failing for one day does not mean that we failed as a whole. We must see the bigger picture and set realistic goals and not force ourselves overburden. Then engaging in community service and helping the others can often lead to a sense of fulfillment and not acting selfish to acquire something. Rather, helping others without having any personal motive or gain. Prioritizing meaningful relationships so that we don't feel inadequate about ourselves, rather derive proper mutual growth and deeper sense of fulfillment from the ones around us. This was all about managing relationships and trying to be happy. Thank you.